My father looked me up and down in front of a room full of Atlanta elite and called my life work a cute little hobby. My mother laughed and told her friends I was just the family printer girl. They watched my brother take my code my late nights and my sweat and pass it off as his own genius. They thought they had me backed into a corner. But then his pristine, perfect fiancée read the name on the bottom of a non-disclosure agreement, and the entire room stopped breathing. They had no idea I owned everything. Before I tell you how I tore down their empire in a single night, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to smile through the pain while your family underestimated exactly who you are. I was 35 years old on my hands and knees under a heavy mahogany desk, blowing dust off a tangled mess of wires. The hum of conversation and the clinking of fine crystal drifted in from the formal dining room of my parents' sprawling Atlanta estate. It was Thanksgiving, a holiday supposedly dedicated to gratitude and family. Yet I was not seated at the massive table. I was not carving the turkey or sipping expensive wine with the guests. I was crawling on the hardwood floor fixing the internet router because my family demanded it. The heavy oak doors of the home office swung open. My mother Yvonne floated into the room wearing a stunning emerald gown. She was flanked by two women from her elite graduate sorority chapter women who shared her obsession with status wealth and perfectly maintained appearances. They paused in the doorway, their eyes landing on me as I struggled to reconnect a loose cable. "Oh, please do not mind, Zuri," my mother laughed, her voice echoing off the vaulted ceilings. She waved her manicured hand toward me with utter dismissal, treating me like a piece of misplaced furniture. "She is just our glorified printer girl. We basically keep her around for IT support when the real adults are trying to work." Her friends chuckled softly. I could hear the condescension in their voices as they adjusted their diamond bracelets and looked down at me with thin, pitying smiles. "It is such a shame," one of them whispered loudly enough for me to hear. 35 and still doing odd jobs. Good thing you have your son to carry the family legacy, Yvonne." I did not say a word. I did not rise to the bait or try to defend myself. I simply twisted the Ethernet cable tight until the green light on the router flickered back to life. I wiped the dust from my knees, smoothed down my suit, and stood up. I walked right past them, feeling the sharp sting of their judgment, but refusing to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. I had learned a long time ago that in this house defending myself was a waste of breath. The hallway leading back to the main living area felt like a gauntlet. Every time I visited my parents' home, the air felt suffocating heavy with the weight of expectations I had supposedly failed to meet. I was the eldest child, yet I was the designated family underachiever. I was single childless and silently building my life away from their toxic social climbing. They saw my quiet nature as weakness. They saw my independence as failure. Before I could reach the safety of the kitchen, a heavy hand gripped my shoulder, stopping me dead in my tracks. It was my father, Harrison. He was a high-profile commercial real estate broker who treated every family gathering like a corporate networking event. He pulled me aside into the alcove, his eyes scanning me from head to toe with overt crushing disappointment. "Is that really what you decided to wear tonight, Zuri?" he asked, his voice a low, grating whisper designed to intimidate. He tugged roughly at the lapel of my jacket. "It is a tailored suit, Dad," I replied evenly, keeping my face completely neutral. "I am comfortable." "It has no brand on it," he scoffed, brushing an imaginary piece of lint off his own custom tuxedo. "You look like a bank teller who accidentally wandered into a gala. Your brother brought his new fiancée tonight, and half of my top investors are sitting in that dining room. I specifically asked you to dress the part. If you cannot afford something from a real designer on your meager salary, you should have asked your mother to loan you a dress. Do not embarrass us tonight." I swallowed the bitter taste pooling in the back of my throat. My suit cost more than the down payment on his first luxury car, but it did not have a flashy, recognizable logo plastered across the chest, so to him it was worthless. To Harrison, if wealth was not screaming, it did not exist. I stepped out of his tight grip, adjusting my jacket with calm precision. "The internet is fixed, Dad. The network is back online. That is what you wanted, right? He rolled his eyes and turned his back on me, marching toward the sound of laughter in the dining room, without another word. I followed, slowly, hovering near the grand arched doorway that opened into the dining space. I watched my family operate. They were the wealthy, prominent dynasty they so desperately wanted the world to see. My 33-year-old brother Malik stood at the head of the long dining table. He was the golden child, possessing an easy, arrogant charm that had allowed him to coast through life on my parents' dime. He had never worked a hard day in his life, jumping from one failed business venture to another, always bailed out by my father. Yet he was the pride and joy of the family. Beside him sat his new fiancée, Paige. She was a white woman with a sharp, calculating gaze and a posture that screamed corporate ruthlessness. She was an acquisitions director at a massive venture capital firm, and she fit perfectly into my parents' world of wealth and connections. As I stood in the doorway, Paige caught my eye. She gave me a brief dismissive once over, her expression mirroring my mother's, entirely unimpressed. She turned back to Malik, placing a proprietary hand on his arm. The sharp sound of a silver spoon clinking against a crystal champagne flute cut through the chatter. The room fell completely silent. All eyes turned to Malik as he raised his glass. "Family, friends, honored guests," Malik announced, his voice booming with unearned confidence. He reached up and pulled down the massive automated projector screen that covered the far wall of the dining room. "I have called you all here tonight because I have something massive to share. Everyone gather around the screen. I have a $2 million announcement to make." Malik hits a button on a silver remote. The massive automated projector screen hums to life, casting a bright blue glow across the crystal glasses and silver platters on the dining table. He puffs out his chest and adjusts the lapels of his tailored suit jacket. "For the last 6 months, I have been grinding," Malik says to the captivated room. "Sleepless nights, endless coding. But I finally did it. I built Apex AI, a predictive data analytics platform that is going to change the market forever." The wealthy guests gasp and clap. Paige looks at him with pure adoration. My mother wipes a fake tear from her eye. My father looks like he just won the lottery. I stand in the arched doorway with my arms crossed, ready to roll my eyes and go home. Then the dashboard interface loads on the screen. My blood turns to ice in my veins. The color scheme is a flashy neon green and black. Malik slapped a cheap modern user interface over the framework. But beneath that glossy surface, the data processing sequence is identical to mine. I watch the screen refresh as it processes a mock dataset. The unique algorithm architecture, the specific syntax structure, the way the predictive models branch out into fractal decision trees. It is all unmistakable. It is my code. 3 years ago, Malik came to my apartment begging for help. He said he was failing a community college business course and needed to show a working prototype for a final project. He pleaded with me to let him look at the proprietary code I had been developing in my spare time. I trusted my brother. I gave him a flash drive with a stripped-down version of my life work, explicitly telling him it was for his eyes only. He promised me he would delete it right after his presentation. He lied. I feel a hot rush of adrenaline, but I force my face to remain completely neutral. The guests are still clapping. Malik is soaking up the applause and raising his champagne glass. I catch his eye across the room. I tilt my head toward the hallway. He ignores me and turns back to Paige. I do not wait for an invitation. I walk directly behind his chair, grab him by the elbow and squeeze hard. "Kitchen," I whisper in his ear. "Now." He tries to pull away, but I dig my nails in just enough to let him know I am not asking. I turn on my heel and push through the swinging wooden doors into the kitchen. The heavy doors shut behind me, cutting off the sound of the applause. The kitchen is hot, smelling of roasted turkey and sage stuffing. A moment later, Malik pushes through the doors. He looks annoyed, running a hand over his perfectly styled hair. "What is your problem, Zuri?" he groans. "I am in the middle of a toast. Why is my proprietary code running your new app?" I demand, my voice low and dangerous. "That is my algorithm architecture, Malik. You stole my work." I expect him to deny it. I expect him to stutter or invent a lie about how he built something similar by coincidence. Instead, Malik just throws his head back and laughs, a loud, booming, arrogant laugh that bounces off the stainless steel appliances. He walks over to the kitchen island, picks up a crystal decanter, and pours himself a glass of expensive bourbon. He takes a slow sip, looking at me with pure condescension. "You are completely delusional," Malik says, leaning against the marble counter. "Your code. That garbage you gave me was basically open source trash. It was a clunky, broken mess. It took me 6 months to put a sleek user interface on it and make it actually function. You did not write a single line of that back-end infrastructure." I stepped closer to him, my fists clenched at my sides. "I spent 2 years building that predictive model. You took my life work and slapped a new logo on it. And you should be thanking me, Zuri." He smirks, taking another sip of his bourbon. "You were just going to let it rot on your hard drive. You do not know how to monetize anything. I took your little hobby project and made it a real business. I found the investors. I did the networking. You just typed some numbers on a screen." My vision blurs with rage. He truly believes he is the genius here. He genuinely believes that stealing my intellectual property and adding a colorful background makes him a visionary tech founder. "You are going to walk back out there and tell them the truth." I tell him, my voice shaking with suppressed fury. "Or I will call my lawyers tomorrow morning and file an injunction that will freeze your entire operation." Malik laughs again, shaking his head like I am a naive child. "You cannot afford lawyers, Zuri. You are a glorified IT girl. I have a $2 million seed fund. Who do you think a judge is going to believe?" Before I can respond, the swinging kitchen doors burst open. My father, Harrison, stands in the threshold. His face is red with anger, his chest heaving under his tailored tuxedo. But he is not looking at Malik. He glares directly at me. "Leave your brother alone," he growls, stepping into the kitchen and letting the doors swing shut behind him. I turn to face my father, expecting him to ask what the problem is. Instead, he marches straight over to Malik and places a protective hand on his son's shoulder. "Dad," I say, keeping my voice steady, "Malik just presented an app to your friends. The software running that app is mine. He stole my proprietary code." Harrison waves his hand in the air, brushing my words away as if I am swatting at a fly. "Stop this nonsense right now, Zuri. I will not have you ruining your brother's big night because you are feeling insecure." "I am not insecure," I state firmly. "I am telling you that he committed intellectual property theft. He literally took my work." "Your work," Harrison scoffs, looking me up and down with utter disdain. "What work? You fix computer glitches for a living." Malik is a visionary. He put in the sweat and the tears to build this company. He pitched the ideas. He secured the funding. You are just jealous that he is achieving the kind of success you never could. He secured the funding using my product, I Fire Back. He secured the funding because I backed him. Harrison shouts, his voice vibrating with rage. The sudden confession hangs in the hot kitchen air. My father looks away for a second, realizing what he just admitted, but then he turns back to me with a hardened jaw. "That is right," Harrison says, stepping closer to me to use his physical size as intimidation. "I took a second mortgage on my commercial real estate firm. I secretly leveraged the family business to give your brother his initial $100,000 startup capital. I put everything on the line because I actually believe in him." I stare at my father in complete shock. He risked the family legacy, everything he had built, to fund Malik. He never once offered to help pay off my student loans. He never once asked about my career. But he handed a fortune to his incompetent son without blinking. The kitchen doors swing open again. My mother, Yvonne, marches in. Her emerald gown swishes around her ankles as she zeroes in on me. Her face is a mask of pure disgust. "I knew you would do something like this," Yvonne snaps, standing next to my father and Malik. The three of them form a unified wall against me. "You have always been a jealous, bitter spinster, Zuri. You cannot stand to see your brother thrive while you sit around doing nothing with your life." "Mom, he stole from me." I try to explain, though I know it is completely useless. "He did not steal anything from you," Yvonne yells, her voice shrill. "You are just trying to tear him down because you want attention. Well, you are not going to ruin this for us." Malik is marrying into the Vanguard family. He is going to be a titan in this city. You are going to go back out there, you are going to smile, and you are going to keep your mouth shut. Harrison points a thick, heavy finger right at my chest. Let me make this perfectly clear for you, Zuri. I leveraged everything for this app. If you try to sabotage your brother's shine out of petty jealousy, I will write you out of the family trust tonight. I will cut you off completely. You will have absolutely nothing. I look at the three of them, my brother hiding behind his parents with a smug, victorious grin, my mother looking at me like I am dirt on the bottom of her shoe, my father willing to destroy me to protect a thief. For my entire life I had tried to prove my worth to these people. I had craved their respect. I had wanted them to see my brilliance. In this moment, all of that desire evaporates. The pain is replaced by a cold, calculating clarity. I do not cry. I do not scream. I do not beg them to believe me. I simply reach out, grab my wool coat from the kitchen chair, and slide it over my shoulders. Keep your trust fund, Dad, I say, my voice dropping to a dead, terrifying calm. You are going to need every penny of it. I turn around and walk out the back door of the kitchen. The cold Atlanta night air hits my face like a splash of ice water, but I do not shiver. I walk down the long illuminated driveway toward my car. I unlock the doors, slide into the driver's seat, and turn on the engine. The heater blasts warm air against my frozen hands. I reach into my bag and pull out my laptop. I pop it open, the screen illuminating the dark interior of the car. My fingers fly across the keyboard. I do not need a lawyer to tell me what to do next. I need data. I bypass the superficial security layers of Malik's app in less than 30 seconds. He is so incredibly lazy that he did not even bother to change the core routing protocols. He just slapped his cheap user interface directly over my original build. I pull up the back-end administrative logs. As the lines of code scroll rapidly across my screen, a slow, predatory smile spreads across my face. Malik did not just copy the code. He left my master administrative backdoor wide open. He essentially handed me the keys to his entire digital kingdom. I have full undetected access to every single byte of data running through his servers. A notification pings in the top right corner of my screen. It is an automated alert from my industry tracking software. It flags a new scheduled meeting for Apex AI. Malik is not just sitting on a $2 million seed fund. He is officially scheduled to pitch his stolen app for a massive buyout to Vanguard Ventures next Friday. I lean back against the leather headrest and let out a soft, genuine laugh. The irony is almost too perfect. Vanguard Ventures is the exact same private equity firm that my company is currently in the final stages of acquiring. My family thinks they have backed me into a corner. They think they hold all the power. They have absolutely no idea that I am the executioner, and they just handed me the axe. I stare at my father, the man who spent my entire childhood teaching me that success was the only currency that mattered. He stands in the kitchen doorway with his broad shoulders blocking the exit, his jaw set in a hard line. His eyes do not hold a shred of curiosity or concern. They hold only pure, unadulterated warning. He takes a slow step toward me, his custom leather shoes clicking against the polished tile floor. I am not doing anything to him, Dad, I say, fighting to keep my voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through my veins. I am trying to explain that Malik just presented a stolen product to your guests. The software architecture running his new application is mine. I wrote it 3 years ago. Harrison does not even look at the projector screen visible through the swinging doors. He waves his hand through the air as if swatting away a minor annoyance. Stop this ridiculous nonsense right now, Zuri. I will not have you ruining your brother's big night just because you are feeling insecure. Insecure. The word hangs in the hot kitchen air, mingling with the heavy scent of roasted sage and butter. I look at Malik, who is now leaning casually against the marble island, swirling the amber liquid in his crystal glass. He is entirely unbothered. He knows he is protected. He has spent his entire life wrapped in the impenetrable armor of our parents' favoritism. I am not insecure, I state firmly, squaring my shoulders to meet my father's aggressive posture. I am telling you a fact. He committed intellectual property theft. He literally took my work, rebranded it, and is pitching it to venture capitalists. Your work? Harrison scoffs. A harsh, ugly sound escapes his throat. He looks me up and down with utter disdain, taking in my plain, tailored suit. What work? You fix computer glitches for a living. You set up routers and troubleshoot emails. Malik is a visionary. He put in the sweat and the tears to build this company from the ground up. He pitched the ideas. He secured the funding. You are just jealous that he is achieving the kind of success you never could. He secured the funding using my product, I fire back, my voice rising just enough to cut through his delusions. He did not build an engine. He stole a car and painted it a different color. He secured the funding because I backed him. Harrison shouts. The sudden confession hits me like a physical blow. The kitchen falls completely silent. Even Malik looks momentarily surprised that our father blurted it out so loudly. Harrison looks away for a split second, realizing what he just admitted, but then he turns back to me with a hardened, unapologetic glare. He steps closer, using his physical size to try and force me into submission. That is right, Harrison says, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. I took a second mortgage on my commercial real estate firm. I secretly leveraged the family business to give your brother his initial $100,000 startup capital. I put my entire legacy on the line because I actually believe in him. I stare at my father in complete shock. My mind races back to when I was 22 years old, begging him to co-sign a small business loan so I could buy server space for my first project. He had laughed me out of his office, telling me that real businesses required physical assets, not invisible code. I had to work 3 jobs, sleep on an air mattress, and bootstrap my entire life. But for Malik, he risked the family legacy. He handed a fortune to his incompetent son without blinking. The kitchen doors swing open again, breaking the heavy silence. My mother Yvonne marches in. Her emerald gown swishes aggressively around her ankles as she zeroes in on the conflict. She takes one look at the scene, her husband red-faced, and her golden boy sipping bourbon, and immediately turns her fury on me. Her face is a mask of pure, rehearsed disgust. I knew you would do something like this, Yvonne snaps. She marches over to stand perfectly aligned with my father and Malik. The 3 of them form a unified wall against me. You have always been a jealous, bitter spinster, Zuri. You cannot stand to see your brother thrive while you sit around doing nothing with your life. Mom, he stole from me. I try to explain, though. The exhaustion of fighting this battle is already setting in. I wrote the algorithm he is pitching. He did not steal anything from you! Yvonne yells, her voice shrill and echoing off the stainless steel appliances. You are just trying to tear him down because you are miserable and you want attention. Well, you are not going to ruin this for us. Malik is marrying into the Vanguard family. He is going to be a titan in this city. You are going to go back out to that dining room, you are going to smile, and you are going to keep your mouth shut. I look at my mother, a woman who spent her entire life curating a perfect image for the Atlanta elite, desperate to maintain her status at any cost. She does not care about the truth. She only cares about the optics. Harrison points a thick, heavy finger right at my chest, stopping me before I can say another word. Let me make this perfectly clear for you, Zuri. He says, his voice vibrating with absolute authority. I leveraged everything I own for this app. If you try to sabotage your brothers, shine out of petty jealousy, I will write you out of the family trust tonight. I will cut you off completely. You will have absolutely nothing. I look at the 3 of them standing there, my brother hiding behind his parents with a smug, victorious grin. My mother looking at me like I am a stain on her perfect life. My father willing to destroy me to protect a thief. For my entire life, I had tried to prove my worth to these people. I had craved their respect. I had wanted them to see my brilliance and my hard work. In this single crystallizing moment, all of that desire evaporates completely. The pain is replaced by a cold, calculating clarity. I do not cry. I do not scream. I do not beg them to believe me. I simply reach out, grab my wool coat from the back of the kitchen chair and slide it over my shoulders. Keep your trust fund, Dad. I say, my voice dropping to a dead, terrifying calm. You are going to need every penny of it. I turn around and walk out the back door of the kitchen. The cold Atlanta night air hits my face like a splash of ice water, but I do not shiver. My steps are steady as I walk down the long, illuminated driveway toward my car. The gravel crunches beneath my heels, each step severing another tie to the people inside that house. I unlock the doors, slide into the driver's seat, and turn on the engine. The heater blasts warm air against my frozen hands, but my focus is entirely on the leather bag sitting on the passenger seat. I reach over and pull out my laptop. I pop it open, the bright screen illuminating the dark interior of the car. My fingers fly across the keyboard. I do not need a lawyer to tell me what to do next. I need data. I bypass the superficial security layers of Malik's application in less than 30 seconds. He is so incredibly lazy and arrogant that he did not even bother to change the core routing protocols. He just slapped his cheap user interface directly over my original build. I pull up the back-end administrative logs, watching the raw data stream down the monitor. As the lines of code scroll rapidly across my screen, a slow, predatory smile spreads across my face. Malik did not just copy the code. He left my master administrative backdoor wide open. He essentially handed me the keys to his entire digital kingdom. I have full, undetected access to every single byte of data running through his servers. I can see his user metrics, his false projections, and his upcoming calendar events. A notification pings in the top right corner of my screen. It is an automated alert from my industry tracking software. It flags a new scheduled meeting for Apex AI. Malik is not just sitting on a $2 million seed fund. He is officially scheduled to pitch his stolen app for a massive buyout to Vanguard Ventures next Friday. I lean back against the leather headrest and let out a soft, genuine laugh. The irony is almost too perfect to be real. Vanguard Ventures is the exact same private equity firm that my company is currently in the final stages of acquiring. My family thinks they have backed me into a corner. They think they hold all the power and the wealth. They have absolutely no idea that I am the executioner, and they just handed me the axe. I close my laptop with a sharp snap, tossing it onto the passenger seat of my car. The engine of my custom luxury sedan purrs as I shift into drive, leaving the sprawling, suffocating grounds of my parents' estate far behind me in the rearview mirror. I do not drive a rented economy car, and I do not live in a cramped studio apartment struggling to make ends meet. That is just the narrative I let them believe because it keeps them away from me. The reality is far different. I navigate the slick, rain-washed Atlanta streets, heading straight for the affluent heart of Buckhead. I pull up to a sleek, modern glass high-rise and bypass the main entrance, steering my car down a private ramp into a high-security underground garage. The heavy steel gates close behind me, sealing out the noise of the city and the lingering toxicity of my family. I park in my reserved spot, grab my leather bag, and walk toward the private elevator that requires a biometric scan to operate. As I press my thumb against the glowing green glass, my phone vibrates deep in my pocket. The caller ID flashes the name of my chief financial officer. I answer the call just as the elevator doors slide open silently. "David," I say, stepping into the glass-walled car. "Tell me you have good news because my patience is completely tapped out for the evening." David lets out a heavy, stressed sigh on the other end of the line. "I wish I did, Zuri. We have a massive problem developing with the Vanguard acquisition." I stare at my reflection in the polished steel doors as the elevator shoots upward. I am the founder and chief executive officer of Oratech, an enterprise data analytics firm that recently hit a $300 million valuation. I built it from absolute zero. I wrote the foundational code in a tiny apartment while working 3 separate contract jobs to keep the lights on, sacrificing sleep and a social life to build something revolutionary. I never told my parents. I never told my brother. In my family, success is not something to be celebrated. It is a resource to be plundered. If my father knew I possessed a $300 million company, he would have found a way to leverage my assets to cover his own reckless, failing real estate investments. If my mother knew, she would have paraded me around her country club to elevate her own social standing, while demanding I fund her lavish lifestyle. So I stayed quiet. I let them call me the printer girl. I let them mock my clothes and my career choices because their ignorance was my absolute best armor. What is the situation with Vanguard, I ask, bringing my focus back to the immediate crisis at hand. The elevator chimes and the doors open directly into my penthouse. The floor-to-ceiling windows offer a panoramic, unobstructed view of the Atlanta skyline, a silent testament to everything I have built with my own two hands. David speaks quickly, his voice tight with mounting anxiety. Vanguard Ventures is moving aggressively. They are fast-tracking an acquisition of a new predictive analytics app. They want to close the deal by the end of the week. They are offering $20 million for it. I walk over to the massive marble kitchen island, dropping my keys onto the counter with a soft clatter. I know David. The app is called Apex AI. My brother is the one pitching it to them. There is a stunned, profound silence on the other end of the line. Your brother David asks, completely bewildered. Zuri, the due diligence report just crossed my desk. Our tech team managed to get a backdoor look at the infrastructure Vanguard is currently evaluating. That app is running on our legacy code. It is the exact framework you archived 3 years ago. I know, I repeat, my voice hardening into steel. He stole it. He took my prototype and slapped a cheap user interface on it to pass it off as a revolutionary new product. David groans, the sound echoing loudly through the phone speaker. This is a complete disaster. Zuri, you archived that code for a reason. It has a critical vulnerability deep in the data processing sequence. It is entirely unstable for enterprise-level deployment. I walk over to the sprawling windows, looking down at the city lights glowing far below. That is exactly why I abandoned it and wrote a completely new architecture for Auratech. I explain, feeling a cold dread settling in my stomach. Malik has absolutely no idea how the algorithm actually functions. He does not know how to patch the vulnerability because he does not even know the vulnerability exists. He is just playing tech founder. David sounds frantic now, the financial and security implications clearly rushing through his mind. If Vanguard Ventures buys that app and integrates it into their primary servers, that vulnerability is going to act like a Trojan horse. It will expose their entire corporate database to massive security breaches. In Zuri, we are 2 weeks away from finalizing our acquisition of Vanguard. The second we merge our networks with theirs, that vulnerability will breach our defenses. Your brother's stolen app is going to infect our entire $300 million empire. The sheer magnitude of Malik's incompetence washes over me like a tidal wave. He is not just a thief looking for a quick, unearned payday. He is a walking contagion. By trying to pass off my old work as his own genius, he has created a digital bomb that is sitting right at the front door of my company. Paige. His ruthless status-obsessed new fiancée is practically rolling out the red carpet to bring that bomb inside Vanguard, thinking she has secured a massive win for her firm. She has no idea she is holding a live grenade. Cancel all of my meetings for Monday morning. I instruct David, my voice cold, precise, and unwavering. I need our acquisition legal team in the boardroom at 8 sharp. We are going to accelerate the Vanguard timeline. I want total control of that firm before the week is out. We are not letting that toxic code anywhere near our servers. I understand, David says, sounding instantly relieved by my decisive tone. I will make the calls right now. We will have the team ready. I end the call and toss my phone onto the counter. I walk over to the refrigerator and pour myself a glass of sparkling water, my mind rapidly mapping out the legal and corporate strategy required to neutralize the threat. I need to move faster than Vanguard and significantly faster than Paige. My family wanted to play dirty, vindictive games with my livelihood, completely unaware that I own the very board they are trying to play on. They thought they could step on me to elevate Malik, but their blind arrogance has finally created a mess they cannot simply buy their way out of. Suddenly, the screen of my phone lights up, vibrating aggressively against the marble countertop. I set my glass down and pick it up. It is a text message from Malik. Attached to the message is a PDF file conspicuously labeled Non-Disclosure Agreement. I open the text and read the message he sent alongside the legal document. My fiancé says you are a liability. Sign this and I will throw you $50K and a junior developer title. I stare at the glowing screen reading the words over and over again. A junior developer title in a company built entirely on my stolen property. $50,000 for a product that is currently jeopardizing my $300 million enterprise. I read the message one last time, letting the sheer, unadulterated audacity of his words sink deep into my bones. He actually believes he has the upper hand. He actually believes he can buy my silence with pocket change and a fabricated job title while his future wife dictates terms from her ivory tower. I lock my phone screen, the bright light fading to black, leaving me standing in the quiet luxury of my penthouse, ready to tear his illusion completely apart. The silence of my penthouse is broken a fraction of a second later. My phone vibrates violently in my hand, the screen flashing back to life. The caller ID displays Malik's name. I stare at it for a moment, letting it ring. I know my brother. He is a coward when it comes to direct confrontation. He prefers to throw stones from behind the safety of our parents. Calling me directly after sending a highly illegal, entirely insulting non-disclosure agreement requires a spine he simply does not possess. I swipe the screen and press the phone to my ear. I do not say a word. "Hello, Zuri," a crisp, sharp voice says through the speaker. It is not Malik. It is Paige. Her voice is the auditory equivalent of a tailored cashmere suit, expensive, rigidly structured, and entirely devoid of warmth. She is sitting somewhere in her pristine corporate office, likely staring at the Atlanta skyline, completely oblivious to the fact that I am looking down at that exact same skyline from an elevation she cannot even access. "Paige," I reply, keeping my tone perfectly flat. "I assume you are calling to explain why my brother just texted me a legally binding document that looks like it was drafted by a first-year law student." I hear a soft, highly practiced sigh on the other end of the line. The kind of sigh a preschool teacher gives a toddler who refuses to color inside the lines. Paige is a wealthy, sharp-elbowed acquisitions director at Vanguard Ventures. She was born into generational wealth, fast-tracked through an Ivy League university, and handed a senior director title before she turned 30. She operates with the kind of dripping condescension that comes from never having been told no in her entire life. Malik is brilliant, Zuri, but he is a bit too soft-hearted to handle the ugly business side of family matters, Paige says, her tone coated in artificial sympathy. He feels terrible about this little rift between you two tonight. But as his partner, and as someone who actually understands the high-stakes world of venture capital, I advised Malik to clean up his loose ends. And unfortunately, right now you are a loose end. I walk slowly across the imported hardwood floors of my living room, trailing my hand along the edge of my custom velvet sofa. A loose end. That is what she calls the sole architect of the intellectual property her firm is about to purchase. I say, letting my voice waver just a fraction of a decibel. I want her to think I am intimidated. I want her to believe she has the upper hand. You advised him to buy my silence for $50,000. Paige lets out a short melodic laugh. It is entirely devoid of humor. Zuri, let us be realistic here. Malik confessed to me that you helped him with some basic data entry and a few lines of rudimentary code when he was building the early prototype. We both know you did not design the predictive fractal branching models. You do not have the educational pedigree or the corporate background for that kind of high-level engineering. $50,000 is a remarkably generous gift for your minor administrative assistance. You could pay off your credit cards. You could upgrade your wardrobe. You could take a nice vacation. The sheer staggering weight of her arrogance almost takes my breath away. She truly believes her own narrative. She has looked at my skin color, my lack of a flashy designer logo, and my quiet demeanor, and decided exactly what my intellectual capacity must be. She has assessed me as nothing more than a minor annoyance, a disgruntled low-income relative looking for a handout. She has no idea that the predictive fractal branching models she is currently praising took me 2 solid years of sleepless nights to architect from scratch. That code is my property, Paige, I state, maintaining the facade of a desperate, powerless sister. You cannot just take it and sell it to Vanguard Ventures. Her voice instantly drops its faux sweetness. The sharp, predatory corporate executive emerges cold and utterly ruthless. Let me explain how the real world works. Zuri Page says, her words clipping together like a metronome. I am an acquisitions director at Vanguard Ventures. I handle multi-million-dollar mergers every single day. I know how to assess risk, and I know how to eliminate liabilities. If you try to step in front of this deal, if you try to claim you wrote that code, I will use Vanguard's elite legal team to bury you in corporate litigation. I stop pacing. I stand perfectly still in the center of my penthouse, listening to her dig a grave so deep she will never be able to climb out of it. We will drag you through depositions until you are completely bankrupt. Paige continues, her voice dripping with venom. We will subpoena every email, every text, and every bank record you possess. We will tie you up in injunctions for the next decade. You are a freelance programmer, Zuri. We are a venture capital titan. Take the $50K and walk away, or I will personally make sure you never work in tech again. I press my lips tightly together to keep from laughing out loud. The supreme irony of her threat is almost too delicious to bear. She is threatening to use Vanguard's elite legal team to destroy me. She does not know that Vanguard's elite legal team spent the last 4 weeks sitting in my downtown conference room, sweating through their expensive suits as they desperately negotiated the terms of their own surrender to my holding company. She does not know that I am the sole owner of Oratech. She does not know that by the end of this month, I will literally be signing her paychecks. You cannot do that, I say, pitching my voice slightly higher, injecting just the right amount of panic into my tone. My father will not let you do that to me. Paige scoffs, the sound sharp and triumphant. Your father is the one who suggested the non-disclosure agreement, Zuri. Harrison is a pragmatic man. He knows Malik is the future of the Wilson family legacy. He knows you are just a distraction. Your own parents want you managed. You have absolutely no one in your corner. I look out the window at the sprawling city. She is right about one thing. I do not have my parents in my corner. I have a $300 million valuation, a team of the most vicious corporate lawyers in the country, and the master administrative keys to the very app she is banking her entire career on. I do not need my family in my corner. I own the corner. So what happens now, I ask, letting out a heavy, defeated sigh. Now you are going to do exactly what you have always done, Paige dictates, her voice returning to that crisp, commanding cadence. You are going to step aside and let the real professionals handle business. Your parents expect you at the country club on Friday evening. It is our official engagement party, and my senior partners from Vanguard will be in attendance. I walk back over to the kitchen island, staring at the glowing blue lights of my espresso machine. An engagement party at the country club, the ultimate gathering of Atlanta's elite. My parents will be there preening and posing, showing off their successful son to the wealthy venture capitalists. Harrison will be bragging about his brilliant business instincts. Yvonne will be flaunting her future daughter-in-law. It is the perfect glittering stage. Be a good girl, show up, and do not make a scene in front of the Vanguard partners. Paige commands, her words sharp as broken glass. We are closing the acquisition deal at the party. I have already drafted the final contracts. I want you to bring the signed non-disclosure agreement with you. Hand it to me personally. Consider it your wedding gift to us. If I do not sign it, I murmur, playing the defeated victim one last time. If you do not sign it, I will destroy your life before the champagne is even poured, Paige promises. Wear something appropriate for once, Zuri. Do not embarrass us. The line goes dead. I pull the phone away from my ear and stare at the darkened screen. The sheer audacity of her demands vibrates through the quiet air of my penthouse. They want me to show up at their lavish country club party. They want me to bow my head hand over my life work for a miserable $50,000 and watch them pop expensive champagne to celebrate the theft of my intellectual property. They want me to be a good girl and quietly accept my place at the bottom of the family hierarchy. I set the phone down on the marble counter. I walk over to my home office, an expansive room dominated by a massive glass desk and 4 high-resolution monitors. I sit down in my ergonomic chair and wake the screens. The lines of Malik's stolen code reflect in my eyes. I am going to go to the country club on Friday. I am going to wear something highly appropriate, and I am going to bring a few documents of my own. Paige wants to close a deal in front of the Vanguard partners. I will make sure it is a closing they will remember for the rest of their miserable bankrupt lives. I drag the cursor over Malik's text message containing the ridiculous $50,000 non-disclosure agreement. I do not hesitate. I hit delete. The file vanishes from my screen, permanently erased into the digital void. $50,000. It is a rounding error on my weekly payroll, yet they thought it was a fortune that would bring me to my knees. I pick up my phone and dial a conference line, pulling my chief financial officer, David, and my lead acquisition attorney, Marcus, into the call. The line connects instantly. They know that when I call this late, the landscape has shifted. We are accelerating the Vanguard Ventures timeline, I announce, my voice echoing in the vast, quiet space of my home office. I want the final acquisition papers signed, sealed, and legally binding by 4 o'clock this Friday afternoon. There is a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. Zuri Marcus says, his tone cautious but respectful. That is 5 days from now. Fast-tracking a corporate buyout of this magnitude usually takes weeks of final due diligence. The Vanguard partners are already dragging their feet on the employee retention clauses. Pushing them to close by Friday is going to be a logistical nightmare. I do not care about their feet dragging, I reply, leaning forward and resting my elbows on the cool glass of my desk. Throw an extra 5% on top of our final cash offer. Tell their board of directors that the premium is entirely contingent on them signing the transfer of ownership by 4 o'clock Friday. If the ink is not dry by that exact minute, we pull the entire deal and leave them to explain the lost revenue to their shareholders. Money talks, Marcus. Make it scream. I can hear the frantic typing through the phone as David begins calculating the new numbers. That is a massive cash premium, Zuri. You are absolutely sure about this aggressive push. I have never been more sure of anything in my entire life, I state flatly. By 4 o'clock Friday, I want absolute, uncontested controlling power over Vanguard Ventures. I want the legal authority to dismantle their executive structure at my own discretion. Make it happen. Understood, Marcus replies. We will draft the accelerated terms tonight and have them on the Vanguard senior partners' desks by tomorrow morning. I end the call and toss my phone onto the desk. The wheels are officially in motion. Paige thought she could use Vanguard as a weapon to destroy my freelance career. She had no idea she was threatening me with a company I was already in the process of swallowing whole. The next few days blur into a whirlwind of corporate warfare. My legal team works around the clock, burying the Vanguard partners in aggressive contracts and irresistible financial incentives. While they scramble to secure my empire, I receive a reminder of exactly why I am doing this. On Wednesday afternoon, my building concierge sends up a stack of mail. Tucked between sleek corporate briefings and financial reports is a heavy cream-colored envelope with thick gold embossing. I slice it open with a silver letter opener. Inside is a lavish, ridiculously expensive invitation. It cordially invites me to celebrate the official engagement and upcoming corporate merger of Malik and Paige at the Peachtree Country Club. The Peachtree Country Club is the epicenter of old money and elite status in Atlanta. It is exactly the kind of venue my parents worship. But the invitation itself is not what catches my eye. Stuck to the front of the pristine cardstock is a neon pink sticky note. I recognize the sharp, angular handwriting immediately. It belongs to my mother, Yvonne. Zuri, we expect you there 2 hours early to set up the AV equipment for Malik's investor presentation. Do not embarrass us. I stare at the bright pink square, tracing the harsh ink of her words. Even now, even as they celebrate a multi-million-dollar theft, they still see me as the help. The AV girl, the invisible tech support. They fully expect me to crawl around on the expensive carpets in my cheap clothes, taping down HDMI cables and testing microphone levels while the elite mingle and sip imported champagne. They want me sweating behind a projector screen so my brother can stand in the spotlight and sell my algorithm to the highest bidder. A cold, sharp spike of absolute satisfaction pierces through my chest. They are digging their own graves, and they are demanding that I hand them the shovels. I peel the sticky note off the invitation, crumple it into a tight ball, and drop it into the wastebasket. I will absolutely be there 2 hours early, but I will not be carrying a spool of cables. Friday morning arrives with bright, piercing sunlight cutting through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse. I stand in the center of the living room, a steaming cup of black coffee in my hand, looking out over the sprawling Atlanta skyline. The skyscrapers stretch upward, gleaming glass monoliths, representing power, wealth, and control. For years, I looked at this city and felt like a tiny, insignificant shadow. Today, I look at the skyline and know exactly what I am. I am the apex predator. My phone buzzes against the marble counter. I pick it up. It is exactly 3:45 in the afternoon. It is done, David says the moment I answer the call. The Vanguard senior partners just signed the final transfer agreements. The funds have officially cleared the escrow accounts. Auratech now owns 80% of Vanguard Ventures. You have absolute controlling interest, Zuri. You are officially the boss. A slow, dangerous smile curves my lips. Excellent work, David. Now I need you to do exactly 2 things for me before you close out for the weekend. Name them, he replies, the excitement of the massive acquisition evident in his voice. First, I say, pacing slowly in front of the massive windows. I want you to print a formal termination of employment for Paige Vanguard's acquisitions director. Check her contract for the gross corporate misconduct clause. She attempted to use Vanguard resources to extort a private citizen and push through a compromised digital asset without proper security clearance. Terminate her immediately, effective as of 5 minutes ago. No severance, no glowing recommendations. I hear the sharp intake of breath followed by the furious clacking of a keyboard. Done, David says. What is the second thing? I stare at my own reflection in the glass. I am wearing a stunning custom-tailored crimson suit that cost more than my parents' first house. It is sharp, immaculate, and radiates pure, terrifying authority. Paige told me to wear something appropriate so I would not embarrass them. I took her advice to heart. Draft a massive intellectual property lawsuit, I instruct, my voice dropping to a lethal whisper. Name Malik and his shell company as the primary defendants. Cite irrefutable evidence of stolen proprietary code, corporate espionage, and fraudulent misrepresentation to investors. Print it on the heaviest, most expensive legal paper we have in the office. Consider it done, Zuri, David says. Do you want me to have the legal courier serve them on Monday morning? No, I reply, turning away from the window and grabbing my keys. Have the documents sent directly to my private driver downstairs. I am bringing them both to the party tonight. I hang up the phone. The time for hiding in the shadows is officially over. Malik and Paige wanted to close their stolen deal in front of the most powerful people in Atlanta. I am going to make sure it is a closing they will never, ever forget. The valet at the Peachtree Country Club rushes forward to open the door of my custom luxury sedan. I step out into the warm, humid evening air. The grand facade of the clubhouse looms ahead, practically vibrating with the kind of generational wealth my parents have spent their entire lives trying to mimic. The building is a fortress of white columns, sweeping marble staircases and manicured hedges. I walk up the steps, my heels clicking with measured, unbothered precision. I am wearing a custom midnight blue designer suit. The cut is flawless, the fabric a blend of imported silk and lightweight wool that moves perfectly with my body. It is the armor of a woman who just finalized a $300 million corporate takeover. It screams executive authority to anyone who actually understands money. But I know exactly how my family will see it. To them, I am just the hired help trying entirely too hard to fit in. I enter the main ballroom. It is a sprawling sea of tailored tuxedos and glittering designer gowns. Waiters in crisp white uniforms circulate seamlessly with silver trays stacked high with crystal flutes of champagne and caviar canapes. The room buzzes with the arrogant, high-volume chatter of venture capitalists, real estate developers, and Atlanta socialites. I pause near the grand entrance, taking a single steady breath. I do not feel the crushing, suffocating weight of their judgment anymore. I do not feel the desperate childhood need to belong in this room. I feel only the cold, heavy weight of the termination papers sitting safely in my leather briefcase. Before I can even take another step forward or reach for a passing tray of champagne, a sharp manicured hand grips my elbow. My mother, Yvonne, materializes out of the dense crowd. She is wearing a blindingly bright silver dress that catches every beam of light from the overhead chandeliers. It is a dress that demands absolute attention. Without a single word of greeting, she shoves a heavy, scuffed plastic bin directly into my chest. The sharp edge of the hard plastic bites into the fine silk lapel of my suit as I am forced to catch it. "Take this to the back immediately," Yvonne hisses. Her eyes dart nervously around the room, scanning the crowd to make sure none of her elite country club friends are watching us interact. The AV booth is behind the main stage. Malik needs his presentation running perfectly in 20 minutes. Do not drop anything. "Hello to you too, Mom," I say, shifting the awkward weight of the bin in my arms. The box is filled to the brim with a tangled mess of thick HDMI cables, power strips, and wireless presentation remotes. "Do not start with me today, Zuri," she snaps, waving a rigid finger an inch from my face. Her voice is low, but laced with absolute venom. "We have highly important people here tonight, and for heaven's sake, stay out of the background of the professional photographer shots. The photographer costs an absolute fortune, and your suit looks far too corporate for a family event. You look like a mid-level bank manager who wandered in by mistake. Just set up the projector screens and stay hidden in the back where you belong. Do not embarrass us tonight." I look at my mother. I look at the absolute disdain etched into the tight lines around her mouth. She is so thoroughly consumed by the illusion of status that she cannot see the reality standing right in front of her. She has absolutely no idea that the mid-level bank manager holding her tangled cables could buy this entire country club in liquid cash and turn the golf course into a parking lot. She has no idea that the wealth she is currently worshipping in this room pales in comparison to the empire I control. "I will make sure I stay entirely out of your way," I reply, my voice perfectly smooth and completely hollow. "See that you do," she mutters. She immediately turns on her heel and glides back into the crowd, her face instantly transforming into a radiant artificial smile as she greets a group of wealthy investors. I adjust my grip on the heavy plastic bin and walk through the opulent ballroom. I pass groups of men loudly discussing market trends and women showing off tennis bracelets. Nobody spares me a second glance. I am carrying equipment. In their eyes, I am invisible. I am just a worker moving through their playground. It is the greatest tactical advantage I have ever possessed. I reach the AV booth, which is tucked discreetly behind a heavy velvet curtain near the back of the massive room. The setup is standard but high-end. A large mixing console, a row of audio amplifiers, and the primary input station for the venue's massive projector system. Sitting right in the center of the wooden console is Malik's laptop. It is a brand new top-of-the-line model undoubtedly paid for by the second mortgage my father secretly took out to fund his golden boy's stolen venture. I set the bin down on the floor and pull out the thick black HDMI cables. I plug the primary cable into Malik's machine and route it through the club's central projector system. The massive theater-sized screen at the front of the ballroom flickers to life. It displays the glowing neon green and black logo of Apex AI. My stolen code. My stolen lifework plastered 10 feet high for the entire room of investors to see. I do not just mirror his screen. I slide my smartphone out of the pocket of my midnight blue suit and unlock it. I access the master administrative backdoor I verified earlier in the week. Malik's network security is a complete laughable joke. Because he stole the core framework and never bothered to actually understand the engineering, he left the legacy remote access protocols completely unpatched and wide open. I write a rapid, highly specific command script on my phone, syncing my device directly to the presentation software running on his laptop. I bypass his local hardware controls entirely. The projector hanging from the ceiling is no longer reading strictly from Malik's keyboard. It is reading from a hidden routed feed controlled entirely by my administrative access. Whenever I want, with a single simple tap of my thumb, I can hijack that massive screen. I can override whatever fake projections he plans to show and display the raw, unfiltered truth to this entire room of elite venture capitalists. I finish the technical setup. I neatly coil the spare cables, push the empty plastic bin under the desk, and dust off my hands. I adjust the cuffs of my suit, feeling the cool metal of my watch against my wrist. The trap is perfectly set. The bait is glowing brightly on the screen. The execution is ready. I step down from the raised platform of the AV booth, ready to find a quiet, unobserved corner and wait for the show to officially begin. But my path is instantly blocked. Paige is walking directly toward me. She is wearing a skin-tight, blindingly white designer gown, moving through the crowded ballroom with the arrogant, aggressive swagger of a woman who believes she owns the world. Flanking her on either side are three older white men in impeccably tailored, expensive gray suits. They carry themselves with the quiet, untouchable confidence of old money. I recognize them immediately from their corporate profiles. They are the senior equity partners of Vanguard Ventures, the very men who, as of 4 o'clock this afternoon, officially work for me. Paige stops right in front of me, forcing me to halt my steps. She raises her left hand to casually brush an imaginary piece of lint off her pristine white dress. The movement is entirely calculated to make sure the overhead crystal chandeliers catch the light on her engagement ring. It is a diamond the size of a grape, heavy, ostentatious, and aggressive. She looks me up and down, taking in my dark suit with a critical, mocking gaze. Her smile is wide, flawless, and completely devoid of any human warmth. Zuri, Paige says, her voice a sharp hiss, barely concealed by her picture-perfect smile. Walk with me. She does not wait for an answer. She wraps her manicured hand around my bicep, her acrylic nails digging into the imported fabric of my suit, and practically drags me away from the AV booth. She steers me through the crowd of laughing socialites and clinking crystal, maneuvering us into a secluded alcove near the edge of the ballroom. We stop behind a towering arrangement of white hydrangeas completely shielded from the main floor. The moment we are out of sight, Paige drops the fake musical warmth entirely. Her face hardens into a mask of pure corporate ruthlessness. She reaches into her silver designer clutch and pulls out a folded stack of papers. She slams them down onto the high-top cocktail table between us. It is the non-disclosure agreement. She reaches back into her bag, produces a cheap branded plastic pen from some mid-level hotel chain, and tosses it carelessly on top of the legal documents. I am giving you exactly 10 minutes to sign this, Paige hisses, leaning in close so I can smell the overwhelming scent of her floral perfume and expensive champagne. And I am only giving you that long because I do not want you making a scene in front of the caterers. I look down at the cheap plastic pen resting on the crumpled paper, and then I look back up into her cold, calculating eyes. I do not touch the document. You are asking me to sign away my intellectual property for $50,000. I say, keeping my tone perfectly flat, projecting the image of a defeated woman trying to hold her ground. Paige lets out a short, breathy laugh of pure disbelief. Intellectual property. Do not flatter yourself, Zuri. You fixed some bugs on Malik's early prototype. You are a freelancer who lives in a different tax bracket, and Malik is a visionary who is about to secure a $20 million buyout. He is brilliant. His genius is going to buy us a summer house in the Hamptons before the year is over. She leans closer, her voice dropping to a vicious whisper. I have worked my entire life to curate this level of success. I am building a dynasty with your brother, and I absolutely refuse to let his bitter, stagnant sister ruin our aesthetic just because you are jealous of his achievements. You are a loose end, Zuri, and in my world, loose ends get snipped. I stare at her, absorbing the staggering depth of her delusion. She is standing in a rented country club ballroom, bragging about a $20 million buyout funded by stolen code, threatening a woman who could buy and sell her entire firm before breakfast. It takes every ounce of discipline I possess not to laugh directly in her face. Before I can respond, the heavy sound of approaching footsteps echoes on the marble floor. 3 older white men stroll past the floral arrangement holding crystal tumblers of scotch. They are the Vanguard senior partners. The men whose signatures are currently drying on the absolute surrender document sitting on my CFO's desk. The transformation in Paige is instantaneous and terrifying. Her rigid posture softens. Her dead eyes light up with artificial joy. A bright musical laugh bubbles out of her throat as she turns to face them. "Arthur, Richard, Greg," Paige sings, waving them over. "I am so glad you found the reserve scotch. I specifically asked the bartender to keep it hidden just for you." The men stop chuckling at her flattery. Arthur, a heavy-set man with silver hair and a ruddy complexion, takes a sip of his drink and smiles at Paige. "You always take care of us, Paige. Your boy Malik has quite the setup here tonight. We are very eager to see this predictive model in action." "He has been working so hard," Paige gushes, sliding her hand possessively onto Arthur's arm. "Oh, I do not believe you have met Malik's family yet. This is Zuri." She gestures toward me with a dismissive flick of her wrist. "She is Malik's little sister. She dabbles in computers, helps him out with the IT and the background cables, that sort of thing." The three men turn to look at me. Their eyes wash over my face, my skin, my tailored suit, instantly categorizing me exactly the way Paige intended. I am the help. I am the diversity hire in the background. I am the little sister playing with cables while the real men do the actual business. Richard lets out a patronizing, booming chuckle. "Well, keep at it, young lady," he says, giving me a condescending nod. "The tech support desk is a great place to learn the ropes. Maybe if you pay close attention to your brother tonight, you will pick up a few pointers on how the big leagues operate." "Absolutely," Greg chimes in, swirling the ice in his glass. "It takes a lot of heavy lifting to keep the screens running for the real talent." I look at the three of them. I look at the men who exactly 20 minutes ago unknowingly handed me the absolute right to terminate their pensions, liquidate their shares, and strip them of their board seats. I offer them a tight, polite smile. "I will be sure to pay very close attention," I say, my voice smooth and perfectly pleasant. "Enjoy the presentation, gentlemen. I promise you it will be unforgettable." The partners laugh again, thoroughly charmed by their own perceived superiority. They raise their glasses to Paige, completely oblivious to the digital guillotine hanging directly over their heads, and stroll away toward the open bar. The second they are out of earshot, the bright musical smile vanishes from Paige's face. The charming host evaporates, leaving only the ruthless corporate shark behind. She turns back to me, her eyes dead and flat. She taps a long, manicured fingernail against the non-disclosure agreement sitting on the cocktail table. "I am done playing games with you," Paige hisses, her voice hard and uncompromising. "Sign the paper, Zuri. Take the $50,000 and disappear into the background where you belong, or I swear to God I will use every resource at Vanguard Ventures to utterly destroy you." I look down at the cheap pen. I look back up at Paige. The words to obliterate her are sitting right on the tip of my tongue. I am one sentence away from watching her entire world shatter into a million irreparable pieces. But before I can open my mouth, a massive, heavy hand clamps down on my left shoulder. The grip is violently tight, the fingers digging painfully into my collarbone. I am roughly yanked backward, my heels stumbling against the marble floor. I spin around to see my father, Harrison, his face flushed an angry, mottled red. Sweat is beading on his forehead, and his breathing is heavy, erratic. He does not say a word to Paige. He does not even acknowledge her presence. He just tightens his crushing grip on my shoulder and physically drags me away from the cocktail table. "Dad, let go of me." I demand, struggling to plant my feet, but his momentum is too strong. He ignores me entirely. He pulls me down a narrow, dimly lit hallway, away from the ballroom, away from the guests, and away from the music. He shoves me backward into an empty, windowless coat room filled with long racks of expensive wool overcoats and furs. The moment I am inside, Harrison steps in behind me, slams the heavy wooden door shut, and turns the brass deadbolt until it clicks into place. We are completely alone in the dark. The air inside the cramped coat room is stifling, smelling heavily of damp wool, expensive dry cleaning, and my father's overwhelming signature cedar cologne. But underneath that familiar oppressive scent is something else, something sharp and acrid that I have never associated with Harrison Wilson before. Fear. Pure, unadulterated terror. The man who has spent my entire life projecting an aura of absolute untouchable authority is physically shaking. He leans his weight against the heavy wooden door. He just locked his chest, heaving as if he has just sprinted across the country club grounds. The dim yellow light filtering through the crack under the door illuminates the heavy sheen of sweat coating his forehead. His custom-tailored tuxedo suddenly looks 2 sizes too large for his frame, as though the arrogant patriarch has violently deflated into a frightened, desperate old man. "Dad!" I say, my voice tight, perfectly maintaining the act of the intimidated, confused daughter. "What are you doing? Let me out of here." "Shut up," he hisses, though the command completely lacks its usual thunderous, booming bite. It sounds frantic and hollow. "Just shut your mouth and listen to me, Zuri. You are going to sign that document Paige gave you. You are going to sign it right now, and you are never going to say a single word to anyone about that algorithm." I cross my arms, pressing my back against a rack of heavy mink coats. "Or what Paige fires me from a freelance career she has absolutely no control over." Harrison drags a trembling hand down his face, wiping away the beads of sweat. He looks at me, and for the first time in 30 years, his mask completely shatters. There is no condescension in his eyes. There is no patronizing glare. There is only a bottomless, terrifying panic. "It is not about Paige," he breathes, his voice cracking in the quiet dark. "It is about the money. The Vanguard buyout money. Malik needs that $20 million check to clear tonight, Zuri. He absolutely needs it." "Malik needs it to buy a summer house in the Hamptons," I reply coldly. "Paige made that aesthetic requirement very clear." "No," Harrison Whisper shouts, stepping closer, his hands grasping frantically at the empty air between us. "That is what he told Paige. That is the lie he feeds her to keep up appearances. The truth is that my firm is gone, Zuri. Wilson Real Estate is completely bankrupt. It has been bleeding cash for 3 years. I am drowning in toxic assets." I stare at him, the jagged pieces of the last few years rapidly locking into place. The sudden downscaling of their luxury car leases. The hushed, angry phone calls I overheard during Thanksgiving dinner. The desperate, manic push to get Malik's tech venture off the ground at all costs. "You gave Malik $100,000 to start Apex AI," I say slowly, watching his face pale even further in the dim light. "You told Mom you took out a second mortgage on the house." Harrison shakes his head, a pathetic, broken gesture. "I could not get a second mortgage. My credit is destroyed. The traditional banks would not lend me another dime." He swallows hard, his throat clicking audibly in the quiet room. "I needed to get Malik that seed money. He was my only hope of generating a massive immediate return. He promised me this app was a guaranteed home run, so I bypassed the traditional lenders." The cold, heavy reality of his words settles over my skin like frost. "What did you do, Dad?" "I secured a bridge loan from a private commercial lender," he confesses, his voice dropping to a shameful, trembling whisper. "A very large, very aggressive short-term loan. And because I had no liquid capital left, I guaranteed it using fraudulent collateral. I forged the appraisals on 3 commercial properties I no longer even own." The sheer magnitude of his absolute stupidity hits me like a physical blow. He did not just make a bad business decision. He committed a massive, undeniable federal crime. He risked everything, his freedom, his reputation, his future, to hand $100,000 to a son who is too incompetent to even write his own basic code. He committed felony bank fraud to fund a lie. "The note is due on Monday." Harrison continues, his words spilling out in a panicked rush. "The lender is demanding full repayment, or they are bringing in the federal auditors. If Vanguard Ventures does not write Malik that acquisition check tonight, so he can quietly transfer the funds to cover my loan, I am finished. The auditors will find the forged deeds. The authorities will be involved. I will lose the house, the firm, and I will go to federal prison." He reaches out and grabs both of my hands. His palms are clammy, his grip desperate. The man who told me my career was a joke, who told me I lacked the intellect for real business, is now clinging to me like a drowning sailor clutching a piece of driftwood. "You have to sign Paige's non-disclosure agreement." My father begs, tears actually welling in his panicked eyes. "You have to take the $50,000 and disappear. If you step out there and claim that code belongs to you, Vanguard will freeze the acquisition pending a legal review. The funds will be locked in escrow. I will not be able to pay the lender on Monday. If you ruin this deal for him, you send your own father to federal prison. I stand perfectly still in the shadows, staring at the man whose blood runs in my veins. Be a good daughter, Zuri, he pleads, his voice cracking with a sickening, manipulative desperation. For once in your life, put your family first, step aside, and let your brother succeed so we can survive this. The silence in the coat room is absolute and deafening. I look at him. I really truly look at him. I look at the man who belittled me my entire life, who actively mocked my intelligence, who allowed my mother to treat me like an invisible servant, now cowering in the dark to protect the golden son who stole my property. He is not asking me to help him. He is demanding that I sacrifice my genius, my intellectual property, and my self-respect to cover up his crimes. He expects me to lay down on the tracks so his golden boy's stolen train can keep running. The dark poetic justice of this moment is intoxicating. He thinks Vanguard's check will save him from the federal auditors. He does not know Vanguard's entire checkbook currently belongs to me. I slowly pull my hands out of his desperate grip. I reach into the inner breast pocket of my midnight blue custom suit. I pull out the folded heavy paper of Page's non-disclosure agreement. I reach into my other pocket and pull out a sleek, heavy gold fountain pen. Harrison lets out a massive, shuddering breath of profound relief. He actually thinks he has won. He thinks his emotional terrorism has successfully broken my spirit one final time. I press the folded document flat against the smooth wooden shelf above the coat rack. I uncap the gold pen. "Okay, Dad." I whisper, my voice soft, compliant, and perfectly hollow. I press the nib of the pen to the signature line at the bottom of the page. I do not sign my name. I do not sign Zuri Wilson, the invisible, compliant little sister. I let the ink flow across the page in bold, sharp, undeniable strokes. Zuri Washington, founder and chief executive officer, Oratech Inc. I cap the pen with a sharp click. I fold the paper perfectly in half, ensuring he cannot see the signature in the dim light, and I press the document directly into his sweaty, trembling palm. "Give it to Paige," I say quietly. Harrison clutches the paper to his chest like it is a winning lottery ticket. His arrogant mask immediately begins to slide back into place, smoothing out the lines of panic. The desperate, begging father vanishes instantly, replaced by the commanding patriarch who has just successfully managed a nuisance. "You did the right thing, Zuri," he says, his voice regaining its deep, condescending authority. "I knew you would finally understand your place in this family." Before I can reply, a sharp ringing sound penetrates the heavy wooden door. It is the distinct, piercing chime of a silver spoon tapping against a crystal champagne flute. The universal, undeniable signal that demands the attention of the room. It is time for Malik's big presentation. It is time for the lie to take the stage. Harrison quickly unlocks the deadbolt, throwing the door open. The bright, blinding light of the chandeliers floods the dim coat room. He does not even look back at me. He rushes out into the hallway, desperate to hand Paige her signed victory before the presentation begins. I step out of the coat room a moment later. The air in the hallway is cool, the distant sound of applause rolling from the main ballroom. I adjust the cuffs of my suit, smoothing the flawless fabric. I am not the good daughter. I am not the invisible tech support. I am a quiet, patient predator, stepping out of the shadows, waiting for the jaws of my trap to finally snap shut. I step out of the dim, suffocating coat room and walk smoothly back into the glittering expanse of the main ballroom. The heavy oak doors close behind me with a solid, satisfying thud. The timing is absolutely perfect. Just as my custom leather heels hit the polished marble of the main floor, the massive crystal chandeliers overhead dim to a soft, theatrical glow. A hush instantly falls over the crowd of Atlanta socialites, venture capitalists, and old money heirs. The string quartet fades into silence. A single brilliant spotlight snaps on, illuminating the raised stage at the front of the room. Malik steps directly into the center of the light. He is wearing a custom-tailored velvet tuxedo jacket that perfectly complements his orthodontist-crafted smile. He holds a sleek wireless microphone exuding the effortless, wealthy playboy aura he has spent his entire adult life cultivating on our parents' dime. The audience offers a warm, polite round of applause. Malik soaks it in, letting the clapping wash over him for a few seconds, before holding up his free hand with practiced fake humility to quiet the room. Thank you, Malik says, his voice rolling smoothly through the high-end audio system I set up just 30 minutes ago. Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate not just my engagement to the brilliant and beautiful Paige, but the launch of something truly revolutionary. He begins to pace the stage, moving with the measured, deliberate steps of a man who has watched entirely too many tech founder documentaries. He runs a hand over his perfectly styled hair and shakes his head, manufacturing a look of profound exhaustion and triumph. People see the success. Malik continues, his tone dripping with fabricated sincerity. They see the valuation, they see the flashy headlines. But what they do not see is the grind. They do not see the sleepless nights. They do not see what it takes to be a lone visionary, staring at a blank screen, building an architecture that is going to fundamentally disrupt the entire global data market. I stand near the back of the room, completely shadowed by a massive marble pillar, and listen to my brother lie to a room of billionaires. He speaks about the grueling process of coding. He drops heavy, complex tech buzzwords he clearly memorized from a script Paige wrote for him. He talks about neural network scalability and fractal branching models with the utmost confidence, completely oblivious to the fact that he does not know how to execute a basic command line prompt. He paints a tragic, heroic picture of himself, sitting alone in the dark, sacrificing his health and sanity to build Apex AI from the ground up. I look toward the front row. My father, Harrison, is sitting dead center. The panicked, sweating, desperate man who was just cowering in a coat room begging me to save him from federal prison has completely vanished. In his place sits the proud, arrogant patriarch. Harrison has puffed his chest out so far, the buttons on his tuxedo shirt look strained. He is nodding along to Malik's lies, radiating the supreme confidence of a man who believes he has just successfully manipulated his way out of a catastrophic financial disaster. Next to him sits my mother, Yvonne. She is currently dabbing at her perfectly dry eyes with a delicate lace handkerchief, playing the role of the overwhelmed, fiercely proud mother, for the benefit of the Vanguard partners seated in the VIP section directly to her right. Malik stops pacing. He stands at the very edge of the stage, gesturing grandly to the crowd. He sweeps his gaze over the audience, playing the benevolent, humble leader. As his eyes scan the back of the room, they lock directly onto mine. A wicked, deeply condescending gleam flashes across his face. He knows Harrison just forced me to sign the non-disclosure agreement in the coat room. He assumes I am standing here empty-handed, defeated, and permanently silenced. He simply cannot resist the urge to twist the knife while he has a captive audience. It takes a village to build an empire, Malik says into the microphone, offering a charming, self-deprecating chuckle. I even want to thank my little sister Zuri. The spotlight operator, following Malik's gaze, swings a secondary beam of light toward the back of the room. It hits me squarely in the chest, illuminating my midnight blue designer suit for the entire ballroom to see. Hundreds of heads turn in my direction. Zuri struggles a bit in the IT world. Malik says, his voice dripping with loud, patronizing sympathy. She is not exactly a developer, but she made sure the projector got plugged in tonight. Give it up for the setup crew, guys. A wave of laughter rolls through the ballroom. It is not malicious laughter. It is worse. It is the amused, pitying chuckle of the ultra-wealthy looking down at the hired help. They look at my tailored suit and assume I am wearing my Sunday best just to crawl around behind a stage. I see Paige standing near the front, her massive diamond catching the light as she claps her hands together, a vicious smirk playing on her lips. I see Arthur, Richard, and Greg, the senior Vanguard partners, chuckling and shaking their heads. I see my father shooting me a hard warning glare, silently commanding me to take the humiliation and keep my mouth shut. I do not flinch. I do not break eye contact with my brother. I stand perfectly still in the spotlight, letting their laughter wash over me like cold rain. They think this is a funeral for my career. They have absolutely no idea it is a public execution for theirs. The laughter eventually dies down. The secondary spotlight cuts off, plunging me back into the comfortable, dangerous shadows. Malik turns his attention entirely away from me. I have served my designated purpose as the family punchline. He pivots to face the VIP section, locking eyes with Paige and the three Vanguard investors. But enough about the background logistics, Malik says, his voice growing sharp, serious, and aggressive. You are not here to talk about cables. You are here because Apex AI represents a $20 million shift in predictive analytics. You are here because this algorithm is going to change the way the corporate world processes raw data. He reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a sleek black presentation remote. He points it over his shoulder toward the massive 10-foot projector screen dominating the wall behind him. Now Malik declares, his voice echoing with absolute hubris. Let me show you the engine that makes Apex AI worth $20 million. He presses the button on his remote to launch the live simulation. The massive projector screen behind Malik goes dark for a fraction of a second, the heavy, expectant silence of the ballroom hanging on that single beat. A sleek animated loading icon appears, spinning gracefully in the center of the display. It is a beautiful, expensive user interface, but I know exactly what lies underneath. It is completely hollow. The Vanguard partners lean forward in their plush leather chairs, their crystal tumblers resting on their knees, eager to see the magic they are paying $20 million for. I stand perfectly still in the shadows of the marble pillar. I reach into the pocket of my midnight blue suit and slide my smartphone out. The screen is already awake, displaying a stark black command terminal. I do not say a word. I do not take a single breath. I simply look at Malik basking in the last fleeting seconds of his unearned glory, and I tap a single pre-programmed key on my screen. The execution is instantaneous. The graceful loading icon on the 10-foot screen stutters. The image tears violently down the middle, fracturing into a chaotic mess of jagged pixels and digital static. A second later, the entire display violently snaps from a soft, professional corporate blue to a blinding, saturated blood red. The sudden shift in intense lighting washes over the front rows, painting the faces of the investors, my parents, and my brother in a sinister, glaring crimson. Before anyone can even process the visual shock, the audio system I personally calibrated kicks in. A blaring, high-pitched error tone rips through the expensive surround sound speakers. It is not a polite system notification. It is a deafening, discordant siren, a digital scream that shatters the polite, hushed atmosphere of the country club. Waiters flinch silver trays clattering dangerously as champagne spills onto the carpet. Several elite guests physically jump in their seats, covering their ears to block out the agonizing frequency. Then the text drops onto the screen. It does not type out slowly. It slams into existence in massive, bold, unforgiving white letters, dominating the blood-red background and reflecting off every crystal chandelier in the room. Critical error. Unauthorized access. Proprietary code of Oratech Inc. Intellectual property theft detected. A collective horrified gasp sucks the oxygen right out of the ballroom. Malik completely freezes. The effortless visionary swagger evaporates from his body like smoke in a windstorm. The color violently drains from his face, leaving him looking sickly and hollow under the harsh red light. The sleek presentation remote slips from his trembling fingers, dropping to the floor and shattering against the hardwood stage. He scrambles toward the podium, his hands shaking so badly he can barely hit the keys. He frantically mashes the keyboard, desperately trying to close the window, to force quit the program, to do absolutely anything to stop the bleeding and hide the accusation. But the local hardware is entirely dead to him. The system is completely locked out, bound strictly to the administrative command running on the device resting quietly in my palm. The panic ripples outward from the stage, instantly infecting the front rows. The three senior partners from Vanguard Ventures, Arthur, Richard, and Greg, immediately sit bolt upright. The patronizing, chuckling amusement they showed me at the cocktail table is entirely gone. Their predatory corporate instincts ignite in an instant. They know the name Oratech Inc. They know it intimately because Oratech just finalized the aggressive, hostile buyout of their entire firm less than 2 hours ago. They are staring at a screen that tells them the golden boy they are about to hand $20 million to has just blatantly stolen from their new terrifyingly powerful parent company. Arthur's face goes ghost white. Richard immediately pulls his phone from his breast pocket, his fingers flying across the screen to contact his legal department. They lean in tightly, whispering urgently to each other, their faces pale, their eyes darting rapidly between the glaring red screen, the sweating fraud on stage and Paige. Paige is standing near the edge of the VIP section, her blindingly white designer gown, now stained red by the projector light. The diamond ring on her finger catches the crimson glare flashing like a warning light. Her fake musical smile is dead. Her jaw is slack. She looks at the massive text accusing her fiancé of corporate espionage, and the terrifying reality of what she has brought to the Vanguard partners crashes down on her. The career she built, the dynasty she planned, the absolute superiority she felt just 10 minutes ago, all of it is dissolving into the red light. In the very center of the front row, Harrison Wilson's entire house of cards collapses. The federal indictment, the forged real estate collateral, the vicious private commercial lender expecting payment on Monday morning. It all rushes to the surface in a wave of suffocating terror. He looks up at the screen, and his mind, completely blinded by decades of arrogance and underestimation, cannot process what is actually happening. He cannot fathom that I am the architect of his destruction. He cannot comprehend that the name on the screen belongs to the woman standing in the back of the room. His brain defaults to the only dynamic he understands. I am the hired help. I am the failure. I am the one who messes things up. Harrison jumps up from his plush seat, knocking it backwards so violently it tips over with a loud crash. Wild, unadulterated panic completely consumes his eyes. He spins around, searching the shadows at the back of the room. He spots me standing calmly by the pillar, the blue light of my phone reflecting off my face. He ignores the horrified Vanguard partners. He ignores the gasping socialites and the elite decorum of the Peachtree Country Club. He points a shaking, furious finger directly at me and screams across the quiet, stunned ballroom. "Zuri, get up there and fix the damn computer. You messed up the cables." The massive projector screen behind Malik goes dark for a fraction of a second, the heavy, expectant silence of the ballroom hanging on that single heartbeat. A sleek, animated loading icon appears, spinning gracefully in the center of the display. It is a beautiful, expensive user interface, but I know exactly what lies underneath. It is completely hollow. The Vanguard partners lean forward in their plush leather chairs, their crystal tumblers resting on their knees, eager to see the digital magic they are paying $20 million for. I stand perfectly still in the shadows of the marble pillar. I reach into the pocket of my midnight blue suit and slide my smartphone out. The screen is already awake, displaying a stark black command terminal. I do not say a word. I do not take a single breath. I simply look at Malik basking in the last fleeting seconds of his unearned glory, and I tap a single pre-programmed key on my screen. The execution is instantaneous. The graceful loading icon on the 10-foot screen stutters. The image tears violently down the middle, fracturing into a chaotic mess of jagged pixels and digital static. A second later, the entire display violently snaps from a soft professional corporate blue to a blinding, saturated blood red. The sudden shift in intense lighting washes over the front rows, painting the faces of the investors, my parents and my brother, in a sinister, glaring crimson. Before anyone can even process the visual shock, the audio system I personally calibrated kicks in. A blaring, high-pitched error tone rips through the expensive surround sound speakers. It is not a polite system notification. It is a deafening, discordant siren, a digital scream that shatters the polite, hushed atmosphere of the country club. Waiters flinch, silver trays clattering dangerously as champagne spills onto the carpet. Several elite guests physically jump in their seats, covering their ears to block out the agonizing frequency. Then the text drops onto the screen. It does not type out slowly. It slams into existence in massive, bold, unforgiving white letters, dominating the blood-red background and reflecting off every crystal chandelier in the room. Critical error. Unauthorized access. Proprietary code of Oratech Inc. Intellectual property theft detected. A collective horrified gasp sucks the oxygen right out of the ballroom. Malik completely freezes. The effortless, visionary swagger evaporates from his body like smoke in a windstorm. The color violently drains from his face, leaving him looking sickly and hollow under the harsh red light. The sleek presentation remote slips from his trembling fingers, dropping to the floor and shattering against the hardwood stage. He scrambles toward the podium, his hands shaking so badly he can barely hit the keys. He frantically mashes the keyboard, desperately trying to close the window to force quit the program, to do absolutely anything to stop the bleeding and hide the accusation. But the local hardware is entirely dead to him. The system is completely locked out, bound strictly to the administrative command, running on the device resting quietly in my palm. The panic ripples outward from the stage, instantly infecting the front rows. The three senior partners from Vanguard Ventures, Arthur, Richard, and Greg, immediately sit bolt upright. The patronizing, chuckling amusement they showed me at the cocktail table is entirely gone. Their predatory corporate instincts ignite in an instant. They know the name Oratech Inc. They know it intimately because Oratech has been the faceless, terrifyingly powerful tech conglomerate aggressively maneuvering to execute a hostile buyout of their entire firm for the last 6 months. They are staring at a screen that tells them the golden boy they are about to hand $20 million to has just blatantly stolen from the biggest shark in the ocean. Arthur's face goes ghost white. Richard immediately pulls his phone from his breast pocket, his fingers flying across the screen to contact his legal department. They lean in tightly, whispering urgently to each other, their faces pale, their eyes darting rapidly between the glaring red screen, the sweating fraud on stage, and Paige. In the very center of the front row, Harrison Wilson's entire house of cards collapses. The federal indictment, the forged real estate collateral, the vicious private commercial lender expecting payment on Monday morning. It all rushes to the surface in a wave of suffocating terror. He looks up at the screen and his mind, completely blinded by decades of arrogance and underestimation, cannot process what is actually happening. He cannot fathom that I am the architect of his destruction. He cannot comprehend that the name on the screen belongs to the woman standing in the back of the room. His brain defaults to the only dynamic he understands. I am the hired help. I am the failure. I am the one who messes things up. Harrison jumps up from his plush seat, knocking it backward so violently it tips over with a loud crash. Wild, unadulterated panic completely consumes his eyes. He spins around, searching the shadows at the back of the room. He spots me standing calmly by the pillar, the blue light of my phone reflecting off my face. He ignores the horrified Vanguard partners. He ignores the gasping socialites and the elite decorum of the Peachtree Country Club. He points a shaking, furious finger directly at me and screams across the quiet, stunned ballroom. "Zuri, get up there and fix the damn computer. You messed up the cables." His voice echoes off the vaulted ceiling, harsh and desperate. The entire room turns to look at him, then follows his pointing finger back to me. I do not move. I do not rush forward to plug in a cable. I maintain my position, my face an absolute mask of calm indifference. At the VIP table, the situation is rapidly deteriorating. Arthur, Richard, and Greg are demanding answers. They are looking at Paige. She is the lead partner on this deal. This is her golden boy. They want to know why a massive intellectual property theft warning from their corporate rival is ruining their launch. Paige swallows hard. She forces her rigid facial muscles into a mask of professional assurance. She tells them it is a misunderstanding, a disgruntled contractor trying to cause a scene. She assures them she has the legal paperwork to prove Vanguard has full rights to the underlying architecture. She reaches into her silver designer clutch. She pulls out the folded document Harrison handed her just moments ago. She smooths it out on the table, her manicured acrylic nails pressing into the heavy paper. We have assigned non-disclosure and rights transfer, Paige says confidently, keeping her eyes on the angry partners. The code belongs to Vanguard. I secured the signature myself. She taps her finger on the bottom of the page and finally looks down to verify the signature. Her finger stops moving. Her breath catches in her throat. The confident, ruthless corporate shark completely vanishes, replaced by a woman staring directly into an abyss. The ink is dark and bold. It does not say Zuri Wilson. It says Zuri Washington, founder and CEO Oratech Inc. Paige's brain struggles to process the words. She looks up at the massive blaring red screen. Oratech Inc. Intellectual property theft detected. She looks back down at the paper. Oratech Inc. She snaps her head around, looking past the panicked crowd, past Harrison's pointing finger straight into the shadows at the back of the room where I am standing. I offer her a slow, chilling smile. In that exact moment, a sharp vibration buzzes against the mahogany table. Richard, the senior partner who had condescendingly told me to pay attention and learn the ropes, picks up his smartphone. His eyes scan the screen. He is reading an urgent, high-priority email from his legal department. The ruddy color completely drains from Richard's face. He looks like a man who has just been informed his parachute is packed with silverware. He slowly lowers the phone, his hands trembling just as badly as Malik's. He turns to Paige. His voice is barely a whisper, but in the sudden suffocating quiet of the ballroom, it carries with terrifying clarity. Paige, Richard says, his face pale, his eyes wide with shock. The acquisition just cleared. Oratech just bought Vanguard. We work for them now. Paige physically recoils as if she has been struck. The air leaves her lungs in a sharp gasp. She looks at Malik, her handsome, brilliant fiancé, currently sweating through his velvet jacket and hyperventilating on stage. He is a fraud. He built nothing. He stole the engine of his entire company from the woman Paige just threatened to destroy. She realizes with absolute gut-wrenching terror that the freelance programmer she just treated like dirt, the woman she shoved into a corner and threatened to bury in litigation, is the founder and CEO of Oratech. Zuri is her new boss. Zuri holds Paige's entire career, her equity, her future in the palm of her hand. The murmurs in the ballroom die out entirely. The silence is absolute. It is the heavy, loaded quiet of a room full of powerful people, realizing they have just witnessed a spectacular, fatal collision. I look at Harrison, who is still pointing at me, his face twisting into confusion, as he realizes I am not coming to his rescue. I look at Malik, paralyzed by his own exposed incompetence. I look at Paige, whose perfectly curated dynasty has just burned to ash in a matter of seconds. I reach down and slowly button the center button of my custom suit jacket. I step out from the shadows of the marble pillar and begin walking down the center aisle toward the brightly lit stage. My custom leather heels strike the polished marble floor, the sound sharp and rhythmic, measuring the final seconds of my family's grand illusion. The heavy, suffocating silence of the ballroom amplifies every step. The crowd parts for me instantly. The wealthy socialites, the venture capitalists, the tech journalists, they all step back, creating a wide, clear path down the center aisle. I walk past the VIP section. Arthur, Richard, and Greg, the senior Vanguard partners, watch me approach. Their expressions have shifted from patronizing amusement to absolute, terrified deference. They know who I am now. They know who owns them. I do not look at them. I do not look at my mother, who is clutching her pearls, or my father, who is standing completely frozen, his arms still awkwardly half raised from pointing at me. I look only at the stage. I climb the short set of stairs. The harsh blood-red light from the projector washes over me. Malik is sweating so profusely that dark, wet patches are spreading across his custom velvet tuxedo jacket. His chest is heaving. His eyes dart wildly around the room like a cornered animal seeking an escape route that does not exist. He opens his mouth to speak, to bluster, to try and salvage his massive lie, but his throat is completely dry. No sound comes out. I step right beside him into the center of the spotlight. I do not yell. I do not scream. I do not need to. True power does not have to raise its voice to command a room. I reach out and smoothly slide the wireless microphone from his trembling, clammy grip. He lets it go without a single ounce of resistance, his fingers uncurling in defeat. I turn my back on him and look down into the VIP section, making direct, unwavering eye contact with the Vanguard partners. "Gentlemen," I say, my voice chillingly calm, resonating flawlessly through the expensive audio system. "The software you are currently looking at on this screen is a stolen, unpatched legacy version of my proprietary algorithm. Malik did not write it. He lacks the fundamental capacity to write it. He stole it directly from my personal development servers exactly 3 years ago." The crowd erupts into a wave of shocked, chaotic murmurs. I raise my smartphone. With a precise swipe of my thumb, the blaring red warning screen vanishes. In its place, a stark black terminal window appears on the 10-foot display, completely filled with lines of source code, metadata, and access logs. I project my digital absolute truth for everyone in Atlanta to see. "Let us look at the foundation of Apex AI." I say, my tone clinical, precise, and completely devoid of emotion. "This is the back-end architecture, the code he claimed to have built through sleepless nights and visionary grind." I tap my screen, highlighting a specific block of data in bright yellow. Notice the deployment logs on the right side of the screen. You will see the original creation dates attached to my digital signature. And right here in the access registry, you will see the exact timestamps of an unauthorized data transfer, perfectly matching the MAC address and IP address of my brother's personal laptop. He did not build this framework. He copied and pasted a directory. I highlight another massive section of the code, bringing it to the center of the display. Malik claims this is a revolutionary fractal branching model. It is not. It is an unstable hollow shell. Because he stole an unfinished prototype, he failed to understand the mathematical dependencies required to run it. If you were to run a basic stress test with more than 10,000 concurrent data points, the memory leak in this stolen code would crash and corrupt the entire host network. He did not build a data engine. He built a digital explosive, and he tried to sell it to you for $20 million. I turn slightly to look at my brother. He is physically shrinking, his shoulders hunched, his eyes squeezed shut, as if he can block out the reality of his public execution. He is completely dismantled. The brilliant tech founder persona has been stripped away, leaving only a frightened, incompetent thief standing under the bright lights. I look back down in the front row. Paige is staring at the screen. Her eyes are wide, darting frantically between the undeniable proof of theft on the display and the faces of the furious Vanguard partners sitting next to her. Her mind is executing a rapid, ruthless calculation. She sees her entire career evaporating. She sees her hard-fought social standing, her wealth, and her future at the firm completely tied to the sinking ship standing next to me. The survival instinct of a corporate shark kicks in with absolute ferocity. Paige does not hesitate. She abandons her seat and rushes up the stairs to the stage. Her face is flushed, an angry, mottled red. Her perfect musical demeanor is entirely shattered. She steps right up to Malik, her eyes blazing with pure, unadulterated venom. She does not look at me. She reaches out and snatches the microphone directly from my hand. I let her take it. Paige turns her back on Malik, entirely facing the Vanguard partners and the hushed, captivated crowd. "Vanguard Ventures was lied to," Paige announces, her voice shaking heavily with adrenaline rage and a desperate need to distance herself from the blast radius. "We were presented with fraudulent technology, fabricated development reports, and forged ownership documents. We are pulling all funding and terminating this acquisition, effective immediately, citing criminal intellectual property theft and corporate fraud." The words hit Malik like a physical blow. He stumbles backward, his mouth opening and closing silently. His beautiful fiancée, the woman who helped him curate this massive lie, the golden ticket to his high society future, has just publicly thrown him to the wolves to save her own skin. He is utterly alone. Malik looks out into the audience, sheer hyperventilating panic radiating from his face. He searches the crowd for the one thing that has always saved him, the safety net that has caught him every single time he has fallen. He looks directly at our parents in the front row. He locks eyes with Harrison silently, desperately begging his father to stand up, to shout down the accusers, to throw money at the problem, to fix the mess the way he always does. But Harrison Wilson does not move. He is practically glued to his chair, his face the color of wet ash. Yvonne is frozen beside him, her hands covering her mouth, her eyes wide with a terror that goes far beyond the humiliation of a ruined engagement. They are entirely paralyzed. They are not looking at a broken son. They are staring down the barrel of their own total destruction. The reality of Harrison's fraudulent commercial loans, the forged real estate collateral, and the impending arrival of federal auditors on Monday morning is crashing down on them in real time. They know the Vanguard money was the only thing standing between them and total ruin. With the funding pulled, the bridge loan will default. The forgery will be discovered. There is no bailout coming. There is no hidden account to tap into. The money is gone. Harrison stares up at the stage, his breathing shallow and rapid. He is facing the absolute certainty of federal prison time right here in front of Atlanta's most elite circle, and there is absolutely nothing he can do to stop it. The absolute silence holding the ballroom hostage shatters into a million jagged pieces of pure, unadulterated chaos. The Vanguard partners do not just leave, they execute a synchronized, ruthless corporate retreat. Arthur, his face flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and fury, turns his back on the stage without a single word to Paige. Richard and Greg follow instantly, their heavy footsteps echoing on the marble as they march directly toward the exit. They do not look at my brother. They do not look at my parents. They walk right past me, offering a stiff, terrified nod of absolute deference to their new corporate overlord before disappearing through the heavy oak doors. On stage, the illusion of Malik the tech visionary disintegrates. He is panting, his hands hovering uselessly over the locked keyboard as the massive red warning screen casts a hellish glow over his panicked features. Paige snaps. The calculating, hyper-ambitious woman who spent the entire evening curating this perfect high society image realizes that she is tethered to a sinking ship and the water is rising fast. She spins around to face Malik, her eyes wide with a manic, desperate rage. "You lied to me!" Paige screams, her voice cracking, entirely abandoning her polished country club etiquette. "You told me you built this. You told me you were a genius. You absolute fraud. You just jeopardized my entire livelihood." Malik reaches out for her, his voice a pathetic, high-pitched whine. "Paige, please. I can fix this. I can explain. It is just a misunderstanding with the code architecture." "Do not touch me!" she shrieks, slapping his hand away, as if his incompetence is contagious. "You do not even know what a code architecture is. You stole from my company. You stole from my boss. You humiliated me in front of the senior partners." With a violent, jerky motion, Paige grabs her left hand. She rips the massive, flawless diamond engagement ring off her finger. She does not hand it back to him politely. She winds up and throws it directly at his chest. The heavy platinum band strikes his lapel and bounces off, clattering noisily onto the hardwood stage and rolling away into the shadows. The wedding is off. Malik Paige declares, her chest heaving. "We are done. Do not ever contact me again." She turns on her heel and practically sprints down the steps of the stage, desperate to salvage whatever fragments of her career might still exist. As she hits the main floor, her frantic eyes scan the room and lock onto me. The transformation is instantaneous and sickening to watch. The arrogant, condescending woman who threw a cheap plastic pen at me in the coat room entirely vanishes. She rushes over to where I am standing in the center aisle, her posture hunched, her hands clasped together in front of her chest in a gesture of pure, desperate begging. Zuri Paige gasps, forcing a sickly, sweet, trembling smile onto her face. "Ms. Washington, please. You have to believe me. I had absolutely no idea he stole that algorithm. He manipulated me just like he manipulated everyone else. I am a victim here too." I look at her, my expression completely blank. I let the silence hang between us, forcing her to stew in her own mounting terror. "I am a valuable asset to Vanguard." Paige babbles, stepping closer, her expensive floral perfume mixing with the sour scent of her nervous sweat. "I know the firm inside and out. I can smooth things over with Arthur and Richard. I can handle the transition for Auratech. Just please keep me on. I can be incredibly useful to you." I look down at her clasped hands, then back up to her desperate, pleading eyes. My voice when I speak is cold, flat, and entirely devoid of mercy. You threatened a vendor with ruinous litigation to cover up a felony, I say smoothly. You tried to force a predatory non-disclosure agreement onto someone you perceived as weak to protect an investment you failed to properly vet. You are not an asset, Paige. You are a massive liability. Paige opens her mouth, a tear spilling over her lower lash line, but I cut her off before she can form a single word. You are fired, I state clearly, ensuring my voice carries to the lingering guests watching our exchange. Your equity is voided under the morality clause of the buyout agreement. Security will escort you to your office. Clean out your desk by Monday morning. A sharp, broken sob tears from Paige's throat. She covers her face with both hands, bursting into loud, ugly tears. She does not try to argue. She knows exactly how the corporate slaughterhouse operates, having worked the kill floor herself for years. She spins around and runs blindly toward the lobby, her expensive heels clicking frantically against the marble as she flees the country club, leaving her ruined engagement and her obliterated career behind. Before I can even process the satisfaction of her departure, the heavy thudding sound of aggressive footsteps charges toward me from the front row. I turn just in time to see Harrison closing the distance between us. The man has completely lost his mind. The carefully maintained facade of the stoic, wealthy patriarch is gone. His face is a dark, mottled purple, swollen with a terrifying mixture of uncontrollable rage and absolute pants-wetting terror. He does not stop to talk. He lunges at me, his massive hands grabbing my upper arm with a bruising, desperate force. You ruined us! Harrison bellows, his voice echoing off the walls, spit flying from his mouth and hitting my cheek. You destroyed your brother. You destroyed this family. You just sent me to federal prison. I do not shrink away. I do not cower. I look down at the hand crushing my bicep, and then I look back up into his bloodshot, panicked eyes. You have $300 million! Harrison screams, the reality of my corporate valuation having finally pierced through his thick skull. Vanguard just paid you $300 million for that company. You pay off my commercial loans right now, Zuri. You call your bank and you wire those funds tonight. You owe this family. You owe me. His entitlement is staggering. He is standing in the wreckage of his own fraudulent crimes. He committed to fund a thief, and he is demanding that I liquidate my hard-earned empire to bail him out. I reach up and place my hand over his gripping fingers. I do not struggle. I simply apply leverage, locking my thumb against his joint and twisting sharply backward. Harrison gasps in pain, his grip breaking instantly. I shove his hand away, smoothing the fabric of my suit jacket where he wrinkled it. I don't owe you a dime, I say, my voice dropping to a soft, lethal whisper that forces him to lean in to hear his own execution. Harrison stares at me, massaging his aching wrist, his mouth hanging open in shock. You told me yourself, Dad. I continue echoing the exact patronizing words he used to dismiss my ambitions years ago. Independence is the greatest form of security. You decided to bet the entire house on the wrong horse, and now you have to pay the bookie. He opens his mouth to scream at me again, to unleash decades of patriarchal fury, but a polite, deeply uncomfortable voice interrupts him. Excuse me, Mr. Wilson. Harrison violently whips his head around. The country club manager, a sharply dressed man with a perfectly neutral hospitality smile, is standing a few feet away, holding a small black leather check presenter. What Harrison snaps, his voice dripping with venom. Can you not see we are in the middle of a private family matter? The manager clears his throat, shifting his weight awkwardly. I apologize for the interruption, sir, but the platinum credit card you put on file for the open bar and the catering tonight, it was just declined by the bank. The words land like a physical blow. The last remaining shred of Harrison's dignity evaporates into the conditioned air. I ran it 3 times, sir. The manager continues, his voice carefully devoid of judgment, which somehow makes it infinitely worse. The bank insists the account has been frozen pending a federal inquiry. We need another form of payment immediately to cover the $25,000 balance. Harrison slumps. The fight completely drains out of his massive frame. He staggers backward, his shoulders rounding his chest caving in. He hits the marble pillar behind him and slides down slightly, leaning against the cold stone like a broken, ruined man. He has no other card. He has no hidden funds. He is completely undeniably bankrupt, and he has just been outed in front of the wealthiest people in Atlanta. I watch him break, feeling nothing but cold clinical satisfaction. The invisible daughter has finally brought the house down. Suddenly, a movement in the crowd catches my eye. My mother Yvonne steps out from the cluster of whispering socialites. She has stopped crying. Her lace handkerchief is tucked away. She walks slowly toward me, stepping over the shattered pieces of Malik's presentation remote. She looks at Harrison slumped against the pillar, and then she looks directly at me. Her eyes are wide, calculating, and shining with a terrifying, predatory clarity as her mind fully processes the magnitude of my true wealth. The horrifying realization of total bankruptcy completely vanishes from Yvonne's face, instantly replaced by a radiant, sickeningly sweet smile. She practically sprints the last few feet toward me, kicking aside the debris on the floor, throwing her arms wide open. The transition is so rapid, so entirely devoid of genuine human emotion, that it is terrifying to witness. She does not see her daughter standing in front of her. She sees a walking, breathing bank vault. My beautiful, brilliant girl. Yvonne weeps, the tears spilling perfectly over her powdered cheeks right on cue. She reaches out desperately, trying to pull me into a tight, suffocating hug, acting as if the last 3 decades of relentless emotional neglect and psychological warfare never happened. I always knew you were a genius. I knew it in my bones. I pushed you so hard, Zuri. I was so demanding and tough on you because I knew you had this greatness inside of you. I had to prepare you for the real world. I take a single deliberate step backward. Her empty arms snap shut, grasping nothing but the heavily air-conditioned air of the country club. I look her up and down. I take in her expensive silk gown, her panicked, trembling hands, and the frantic, shallow breaths lifting her chest. I search myself for a shred of empathy, a tiny spark of familial obligation, but I find absolutely nothing. The well is completely dry. I feel nothing for the woman who spent my entire childhood comparing me to a thief, the woman who sat sipping champagne with her friends while casually calling me a printer girl. Please, Zuri. Yvonne begs, her voice dropping into a frantic whisper, meant only for me. Her eyes darting nervously toward the lingering guests who are watching our family publicly implode. You have to help us. You have to save our reputation in the community. If we lose the house, if your father goes to federal prison, we will be ruined. Our friends will shun us. We will be laughingstocks. You can fix this right now. You have the money. You are a CEO. You can save your family. I maintain my cold, unwavering stare. My voice is quiet, perfectly steady, and entirely absolute. I cannot help you, Mom. I am just the IT support. Remember, I fix the cables. I plug in the monitors. I do not write 9-figure checks for failed, fraudulent businesses. Yvonne's face violently crumbles. The desperate, hopeful facade shatters into a million irreparable pieces. Her jaw goes slack. Her eyes widen in pure, unadulterated horror as the sheer magnitude of her reality finally hits her. She has lost her beautiful golden child. She has lost her husband's stolen wealth. She has lost her elite social standing. And most devastatingly of all, she has permanently alienated the only daughter who possessed the power to save her from the incoming wreckage. At that exact moment, the heavy oak double doors at the back of the ballroom swing open with a resounding, thunderous crash. 5 men and women in impeccably tailored dark charcoal suits step into the room. They move with synchronized military precision, embodying the ruthless, unstoppable force of elite corporate law. They are carrying thick, sealed manila folders. The lead attorney, my personal general counsel, scans the room, locks eyes with me, and gives a curt professional nod of acknowledgement. They march in formation down the center aisle. They do not look at Harrison, who is still violently trembling against the marble pillar. They walk right past Yvonne, who is currently sobbing into her hands. They head straight for the brightly lit stage. Malik is no longer standing. He has collapsed onto the very edge of the hardwood platform. His legs are dangling over the side. His head is buried deep in his hands, his fingers digging into his scalp. He looks like a terrified, broken child. The lead attorney steps up to the edge of the stage, towering over my brother. He does not offer a polite greeting. He does not introduce himself. He simply extends his arm and drops the heavy manila folder directly into Malik's lap with a loud smack. He announces in a booming, clear voice that carries to every single corner of the silent ballroom that Malik Wilson is being formally served with a multi-million-dollar federal lawsuit. He lists the charges with surgical precision: criminal intellectual property theft, malicious corporate espionage, and willful financial fraud. Malik does not look up. He does not open the folder. He just curls tighter into a ball, letting out a low, pathetic whimper as the legal executioners turn around and walk away, their job perfectly executed. I do not say another word. I do not offer a final gloating speech. I do not need to demand an apology that I will never believe. They are not worth another second of my time, my energy, or my breath. I turn my back on the smoldering wreckage of my toxic family. I leave them trapped in the ballroom they rented, surrounded by the elite society they worshipped, drowning in the public humiliation they entirely brought upon themselves. I walk up the center aisle, my head held high, my posture immaculate. I push through the lobby doors and step out onto the valet driveway. The crisp, cool Atlanta night air hits my face, washing away the suffocating tension of the country club. I close my eyes and take a deep, massive, cleansing breath. The heavy, invisible chains of seeking their approval, of trying to prove my worth to people committed to misunderstanding me, shatter completely and fall away. A sleek, black chauffeur-driven Maybach glides silently up to the curb. The driver steps out and opens the heavy rear door for me. I slide into the plush, leather-scented cabin. The door closes with a solid, isolating thud, shutting out the noise of the world. As the car pulls away from the curb, my phone begins to buzz continuously in my pocket. I pull it out and look at the screen. It is not flooded with angry threats from my father or desperate weeping pleas from my mother. It is lighting up with a relentless stream of celebratory texts. Messages are pouring in from my loyal development team, the brilliant coders who actually built the architecture. There are texts from my true friends, the people who supported me when I was sleeping under my desk and living on instant ramen. There are formal, ecstatic emails from the board members of my newly expanded, untouchable corporate empire, officially welcoming the Vanguard acquisition into our portfolio. I lean back against the soft leather headrest and look out the tinted window. The glowing electric skyline of the city rushes past me in a blur of brilliant light. I am no longer the scapegoat. I am no longer the shadow. I am completely, utterly free, and I am ready to rule. The ultimate lesson is that your worth is never defined by those committed to misunderstanding you. True power comes not from seeking validation from toxic family, but from quietly building your independence and drawing absolute boundaries. You do not owe your success or your resources to people who once treated you as invisible. Healing begins the moment you stop fighting for a seat at a table that was never meant for you, and instead build your own empire. Please tell us about walking away from toxic relatives to protect your peace. Share your story below and subscribe for more content.